to Eagle News International Australia Oceania. I am Morgan Goodfellow from Townsville, bringing you stories from Australia, New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. Or the headlines. Papua New Guinea administers hundreds of COVID-19 vaccines in National Capital District. Australia targets all adults jabbed with coronavirus vaccines by end of 2021. Mass COVID-19 vaccination hubs in Sydney open to public. Southern Queensland received severe thunderstorm warnings as storm season prolonged. South Australia launches undercover QR code Operation Trace. And Townsville's Museum of Tropical Queensland exhibits new Pandora gallery. Let's kick off with some COVID-19 updates in Papua New Guinea. The surge of coronavirus cases in Port Moresby prompted government officials to convert the Reader Sport Complex into a vaccination centre, with additional mitigation efforts in place throughout the National Capital District. Eagle News correspondent Echo Hortaleza Quinola has more details. Echo?
Due to an upsurge of COVID-19 cases in Port Moresby, the Rita Flynn Sports Complex was converted as COVID-19 vaccination center for residents and non-citizens of this country to receive their free jabs. The National Pandemic Response Joint Agency Task Force stated it is a matter of national importance that Papua New Guinea remain vigilant and firm in their health protocol measures to protect the lives of the people. The National Capital District, Port Moresby, received more than 4,000 vaccine doses from Australia to better manage the COVID-19 surge in Papua New Guinea. They offered jabs to the public and were carried throughout the vaccine rollout by more than 500 health workers. The Rita Flynn Sports Complex was mobbed by mixed nationalities who were eager to be vaccinated. Many Filipinos were adamant to have their protection against this global health enemy. The vaccination lasted for about 30 minutes by observing a very remarkable 5 strict procedures. The first procedure was the temperature check and sanitation, then moves on to filling in your COVID-19 vaccination card. Third, personal information will be taken by the health workers in charge who interviews you about your medical history or health conditions. Fourth process is administering COVID-19 vaccination. The last step will be an observation time for 15 minutes to see if there will be any adverse effects before going home. According to those who have undergone jabs, they mildly experience side effects such as numbness of their injected arm, dizziness, chilling, fever, and headache which lasted for 1 to 2 days.
The reason I built the vaccination program of the PNG government because I will be protected from the worst effect of the COVID-19 virus, which is death. Actually, the Philippine government is encouraging all Filipinos who are currently outside the Philippines to be vaccinated before going back to the Philippines.
Do you also encourage your fellow men to take the vaccine?
Yes, I'm encouraging all Filipinos to build the vaccination program of PNG government. Actually, we are very lucky. We were allowed to be vaccinated even though the supply is limited. Do not be too particular with the brand or efficacy of the vaccine. They have the same purpose, that is to save lives. I did not experience any side effects at all. What I did after I was vaccinated, I just stayed at home and sleep. Just drink plenty of fluids and do not report to work as much as possible. COVID-19 is a very serious virus which affects every one of us. Now there are some second waves, third waves, so I would suggest that all of us should be vaccinated.
Though undergoing vaccine jab is a choice, health authorities encourage civilians to receive the vaccine, as this will help in preventing the spread of the virus and in result will help save lives. Reporting from Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, this is Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Echo. We look forward to the positive outcomes of Papua New Guinea's vaccination efforts. Moving on to Australia, the country's vaccination program is stirring towards the next phases, aiming to jab all eligible adults by the end of 2021. Now, enhanced efforts of all concerned parties are needed to meet this goal. Our Brisbane correspondent Mia Macapagal will share more on the story. Mia?
The Australian government has administered the goal to vaccinate all willing adults by the end of 2021. This ambition sought extensive work and intensified efforts operated by the nation's states and authorities. With a national population of 50 million, the recorded total of 2.5 completed vaccinations merely leaves an indentation in the work that is to be done. This positions Australia behind many of the world's leading countries. Many are saying that despite Australia's vigorous effort to successfully rid the pandemic, the success is revoked by vaccination endeavours. Nevertheless, the delays and issues in the vaccine rollout has not discouraged the hope in reaching the goal. The complications and setbacks experienced in Australia's vaccination program is seeing the intensified efforts by governing authorities. Mass vaccination hubs are on the rise throughout the nation. There are also clinics that are converting into vaccination facilities. The manufacture of a new vaccine is now in discussion. It can be seen that accessibility is flourishing for those who want to be vaccinated. Vaccination endeavours has not caused the disregard for other aspects of the pandemic. The effective suppression of the virus holds responsibility for the economic recovery plan of the nation, according to Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. The commitment of $291 billion into virus-related endeavours will pursue support for many. Governing authorities are seeking the attention of those willing to get vaccinated to take action and contribute in this national goal. Reporting from Brisbane, Australia, this is Mia Macapagal, Eagle News, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Mia. It is reassuring to hear the progress of Australia's vaccination rollout. Meanwhile, in New South Wales, Sydney has intensified its efforts by opening public mass vaccination hubs throughout the city. Let's learn more from Eagle News correspondent Armelin Martin. Armelin?
Mass vaccination hubs open up to accelerate getting thousands more Australians to receive the COVID-19 vaccination. Many residents in New South Wales are getting their jab in hopes of reducing the risks of acquiring the illness and reducing the chance of spreading the virus. On May 10th, the Sydney Olympic Park Mass Vaccination Centre opened up to the public to receive their COVID-19 vaccination. Operating 6 days a week with over 300 staff of registered nurses and midwives, the hub is capable of delivering over 30,000 doses per week. Bookings came in thousands on the day of the opening, and on May 12th, New South Wales Health recorded a whopping 2,554 vaccines administered at this hub in just one day. Apart from the massive hub opening at Sydney Olympic Park, over 100 clinics and vaccination hubs are in operation all over New South Wales. With more people becoming eligible for the vaccine, this makes it a big turn for Australia's health. At first, there was a big focus on delivering the Pfizer vaccine to those of priority, including healthcare workers, emergency service workers, and quarantine or border workers, together with their families. Now, with ongoing changes to the eligibility, those aged 40 to 49 can register for the Pfizer vaccine, and also all Australians over 50 years of age are eligible for the AstraZeneca vaccine. To find out if you are eligible to receive the jab in Australia, you can access the vaccine eligibility checker online. With vaccinations happening in masses and many more Australians receiving the vaccine, this brings more hope to Australians for a better tomorrow. New South Wales is on their way to a safer, healthier and COVID-free environment. From Sydney, Australia, this is Armelin Martin. Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Armelin. Kudos to Sydney's massive endeavours to fight COVID-19. After the break, we'll hear about the severe thunderstorms affecting residents in southern Queensland. Plus, let's learn more on the launching of South Australia's undercover QR code, Operation Trace. And let's explore the latest event at Townsville's Museum of Tropical Queensland. All these stories when Eagle News International Australia Oceania returns. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News International Australia Oceania, now in Queensland. The Australian storm season is surprisingly prolonged into May, as residents of southern Queensland receive severe weather warnings. Extreme weather conditions have forced residents to take precautionary measures. Patricia Madronio, Eagle News correspondent from Gold Coast, will give us the full story. Patricia?
Australians residing in South Queensland were surprised when severe thunderstorm warnings were issued on May 11, 2021. With the storm season typically lasting from October to April, the incoming inclement weather left Queenslanders little time to prepare. The warnings were first issued to suburbs closer to central Queensland on the 11th of May, but these were extended to Noosa, Brisbane, Logan, and Gold Coast when it became clear that the cells were moving southward from the 12th to the 13th of May. Overall, the coast experienced up to 50 millimeters of rainfall over the course of 3 days. The number of lightning strikes recorded exceeded 100,000, while hailstones and strong winds accompanied the heavy rainfall in many areas. This resulted in many emergency calls as power outages were experienced in around 10,000 homes along the coast. Additionally, notices were sent out through social media to inform motorists of the dangerous conditions, whereas train services from Gold Coast to Brisbane were halted due to a complication in the power lines. Fortunately, most of the downpour occurred during the evening and very early hours of the morning in most of the areas affected. Midday on May 13 revealed the need for considerable cleanup and restoration efforts. However, citizens of Queensland were reassured by a bright and sunny afternoon that greeted them, as well as the beautiful days forecasted for the rest of the week as the country moves into the winter season. Reporting from Gold Coast, Australia, I'm Patricia Madronio, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Patricia. We hope that residents can spring back quickly from the storm impacts. Moving now to South Australia, the state government launched Operation Trace to address non-compliance to contact tracing regulations, proactively implemented by undercover officers. Here's Imara Likudan, our Adelaide correspondent, to give us further details. Imara?
Before the pandemic, the term contact tracing had little meaning to anyone. However, with the pandemic being more than a year old, the concept remains all the more relevant. The South Australian government launched the QR code campaign to aid in contact tracing. However, as the months wore on and complacency set in among the population, what used to be so essential in slowing down the virus has begun to fall out of use. Now, a renewed push to use the QR codes located at various establishments has begun, with undercover enforcement officers taking the lead.
As a response, the push against QR code complacency was launched under the name Operation Trace, with the aim to ensure compliance to the existing rule of checking into establishments using QR codes, in hopes to maintain vigilance despite the rollout of the vaccine continuing throughout the state. At the onset of the pandemic, businesses were required to set up a QR code in their shops, which patrons were required to scan to signal their presence within that public space. This was to aid in contact tracing and to quickly notify all entrants to immediately isolate should a breakout from the area occurs, with South Australia continuously experiencing low case numbers. The QR codes have steadily begun to be used less. Those who fail to check in using the QR code set by the venue or public activity will be caught by nearby police officers disguised as a normal civilians. Being caught at a public venue without checking in will result in hefty fines, with repeat offenders being a particular interest.
As the vaccine rollout continues, South Australian government hopes that adherence to the QR system is maintained to avoid unnecessary lockdown or, worst case, renewed outbreaks of the virus. With COVID cases not seeing any drop throughout the world, this new program aims to remind all inhabitants of South Australia that despite low case numbers in the state, the pandemic is far from over. Reporting from Adelaide, South Australia, this is Imarme Likudan, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Many thanks, Amara. We hope this campaign will push residents into abiding contact tracing regulations. Heading now further up to northern Queensland, Townsville's Museum of Tropical Queensland presents the edition of Pandora Gallery, an exhibition showcasing fragments of the renowned Pandora shipwreck that was found in the outskirts of the Great Barrier Reef. Here's Eagle News correspondent Laurie Kate Solomon to walk us through. Go ahead, Laurie.
Here at the Museum of Tropical Queensland features the newfound evidence from archaeological findings with a treasure trove of underwater artifacts on display.
Pandora may never have made such a mark on our history pages had the main pump not failed 12 hours later. Unable to keep water from entering the hull, Captain Edwards gave the order to abandon ship. Pandora was consumed by the ocean, taking 31 crew and 4 mutineers with it. A well-armed British Royal Navy warship wrecks in the Torres Strait in 1971. This is what remains of the HMS Pandora, the oldest shipwreck on the Great Barrier Reef. On the 28th of August 1791, HMS Pandora arrived at the edge of the Great Barrier Reef, and what a barrier it proved to be. Captain Edwards sent out a small boat to investigate the navigability of the waters, and in an attempt to pick it up, struck an isolated reef. Luckily, a rising tide and the crew's efforts at the pump refloated Pandora to safety. Finding shipwrecks can be a challenge. Despite decades of searching and knowing the approximate location of Pandora, it wasn't until 1977, a group led by Steve Daum and John Heyer, the other by Ben Kropp, found the wreck with assistance from the Royal Australian Air Force. However, it would take another 2 years of archaeological surveys to confirm it was the infamous shipwreck. Pandora is located 140 kilometers east-southeast of Cape York on the Outer Barrier Reef. It sits below 30 meters of water, hidden amongst towering coral outcrops. Although it is one of Australia's most significant archaeological sites, much of the vessel remains buried below the seabed.
What we see here today in the Museum of Tropical Queensland is only half of the HMS Pandora's entirety. The rest remains undisturbed for future archaeologists to return with more advanced tools and technology. Reporting from Townsville, Australia, this is Laurie Kate Solomon, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Laurie. This latest exhibition will absolutely encourage more visitors to check out the museum. And that ends today's program. Thank you for watching Eagle News International Australia Oceania. Join us again next time as we share more stories from our bureaus across Australia, New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. Visit our websites on eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on twitter.com/eaglenews and on facebook.com/eaglenews. Stay safe, stay strong and take care, everyone. From Townsville, Australia, I am Morgan Goodfellow, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.